How's it going YouTube? Commenting today with another video, and today guys, the video is going to be more rulings. I feel like rulings are really just the mainstay of the game right now, and what really drives people to do better and helps you become better, because a lot of situations, it doesn't matter what the ruling is, as long as you know the ruling, you probably win the match, right? Because that's something that is extremely important in such an intricate game. Today we're going to be going over a few more rulings that you should be aware of. Things that are old and things that are new, because these can always come full circle in later scenarios. So if you haven't already checked out my sponsors over on RW, Cloud, Gem, Arla, Imperium, Dragonshield, or Grimoire, definitely go ahead and do so all down below in the description. And then also subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already for more educational Yu-Gi-Oh content. I appreciate it so much. We're on our way to 25,000 and ultimately on our way to 30,000. We will get there very soon. I know we will. Let's hop right on into the first ruling. The first one I have for you today is going to be the difference between control and possession. I just wanted to split these two to really help you understand what they mean before we get into like card rulings. So control refers to the cards that are on your field, where possession's a little different. So possession just means cards in your hand, your field, your banish pile, face up, face down, your graveyard, your deck, your extra deck. Anything that you bring to the table is going to be in your possession. And very few cards say possession, but it's still something that does come up. So if you get into a situation about possession, it basically means everything, whereas control just means the cards that you actually have on your field. Now here's a fun one for you that's very relevant. So as you know, Mischief of the Gnomes is one of those cards that you just have to be running in your sideboard right now with Thrust. Card is way too spectacular. You need to be running this against Riw Hobbies. Not only does it make it really awkward for rank 4s, but it makes it feel almost impossible to play the game once this is established against his deck. But one of the things you may not know is that there is a discrepancy between the text of the TCG and the OCG x Riw. So, essentially, when Mischief of the Gnomes is in play, X in the hand is a level 3. So when it hits the board, it is also a level 3. Now, why is this an issue? Because there's something that is not a level 4 on your board. Yes, X does check itself, and it would be level 3, which is quite an issue. And that makes Mischief of the Gnomes that much more brutal. SP has a very unique effect as far as you can banish something, and then your monsters cannot attack directly for the rest of the turn. This is an effect that does not apply to the player, it applies to monsters. The new Lunalight Dancer is unaffected by other card effects except Lunalight cards. Why is this relevant? Because once you use the effect of Little Knight to banish something, then go battle phase, the Dancer can still attack directly because it's unaffected by SP. So instead of SP applying to the player, it would specifically just apply to the monsters that you control. Now, when I say affecting the player, this is one of those things where, for example, evenly matched versus a Shizuku being on the board. When your opponent activates evenly matched and then you have to decide what you want to banish, if you banish your own Shizuku face down, the Ray won't get an effect because you, the player, are choosing to banish Shizuku face down. It's not your opponent's card doing it. You're banishing your own card. Therefore, Ray won't get an activation. So affecting a player versus affecting cards is very important, and it's a huge distinction. So yes, the Dancer will still be able to attack directly even after applying the effect of SP Little Knight to banish a card. While we are on the topic of boss monsters and things that are unaffected, unless they specifically state that you cannot target them, you're allowed to do that. So this was a very old example, but it's something that could still be translated into a later ruling. So Borrelsword can still legally target a Rongo Miniad to put it into defense and get a second attack, just because it's still targetable. You're still allowed to target it. Just because it's unaffected doesn't mean you can't target it. It will still resolve, leaving the Rongo in attack mode, and the Borrelsword will get to attack twice. So, kind of cool. Definitely a little different and something that you may not have known. Now, this is also a very common ruling that comes up quite often, and it's something that you also may not know. Who activates the card effect that gets summoned after a talent is trying to resolve? I.e., when you have an IP and you chain it to your opponent's talent. What happens? So if you activate IP in response to your opponent's talent, and then your opponent takes the SP, you, the player who summoned the SP, will get to be the one that uses the effect. This is the same with things like Guardian Chimera. You will be able to use the effect on your opponent's board, which is insane. That's just how it's ruled in the TCG. Now, the other thing I find really fun is that if you are under a situation where you have an IP and your opponent has the talent going off, you can just summon an Underworld Goddess, and it's another card that's just unaffected. So you can summon it, and your opponent can't take it. So sometimes when this happens to me, I just link my whole board into an Underworld. And this is really fun for when I'm playing like tier, because I'll have a tier cash in hand and I'll have a Scream on board. So after this resolves, I'll just like mill 6, right? So it's a really useful thing to know, especially when it comes to unaffected monsters. Uh-oh, another Droplet ruling. This card can be very complicated and have a lot of very interesting scenarios for it. So what happens to attack totals when you are being negated by Droplet? So Droplet actually is one of those really funny cards that will have the attack before the card is negated. So even like an Appaloosa, let's say it's at like 3,200, right? You would have that and then negate the Appaloosa, but it wouldn't go to 0 because it already gets a brand new fixed attack, which is really interesting. So even like Cryptor having a specific amount of attack, it gets halved and then negated. So it will be receiving that brand new fixed attack after being halved. So definitely a very interesting scenario with Droplet, is it will always have and then negate. So definitely very cool. Cryptor is one of those cards too where if you do blanket and perm the card and it has 5,000 attack, it will go back down to 25 just because it will go ahead and blank the card, and Cryptor only affects itself, therefore it can't retain its own attack being doubled. Now the last one I found on the Judges Lounge that I thought was an interesting one that I wanted to explain. So this is something that I could find to be very confusing for players, so I want to make sure this is very clear, that if there is a, and this is quoted from the Judges Lounge again, applying a non-activated effect won't make another effect miss timing. So why this is important is, let's say that you were under Fualos and your opponent is drawing cards and you special summon a monster and the card they drew is Chaos Hunter, they can still summon the Chaos Hunter because it's an instant action of the summon to happen. You will draw the card and then you'll go to that summon window. This is something that is legal in the game and you can do. So just to clear up anything, if you do draw a Chaos Hunter off of a Fulos and your opponent had special summoned a monster for you to draw that card, you can go ahead and immediately rip that card because it was already there by the time that monster is summoned on the board. I hope that you learned something new and you enjoyed this video. If you did, definitely go ahead and check out my Twitter, Twitch, Discord, Instagram. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already, and I'll catch you all next video. Thank you.